So we're recording now. Alright. Oh geez, this is always the awkward part where I try to make an intro to this podcast. Anyways, so hey guys, welcome to the You and I podcast. And as kind of me and my guest Allan Porter, we've been already kind of talking about this, but the reason that I'm making this podcast is kind of one, to talk with very interesting people, but two, to show that you and I are no different than anyone in the Bible, whether it's in regards to failure or success or anything of the sort. It's you and I are just like them. And so I'm here with Allan Porter. He's the head of the prison ministry here in Fredericton. He's got his own siding company. He's come a long way. And yeah, how you doing, Allan?
I'm doing well, thanks.
Yep. It's been a long week. We've been trying to do this for like 3 weeks, I think.
Yeah, it's been really hot and we're really tired, but you know, I'm glad that you came out and we have a chance to take another stab at this.
Another stab, another swing.
Another stab, but not in the dark. Not in the dark anymore, no.
Yep. And so we already did an interview earlier for kind of a school project, and what happened with that was it was obviously powerful to the kids at school because I think one of the young girls told her guardian, and the guardian told you or something like that it impacted her, or it was interesting or something like that. But we couldn't say all the details because of, it's school. It's a secular environment.
Right.
You can't say everything. And so, we're kind of going to flesh out the story more. We're going to talk about certain scriptures that impacted Allan in his lifetime. And Allan, if you want to kind of take the wheel and kind of tell us about where you were before Jesus moved into your life.
I was remanded at a rehab in St. John, and I had to stay there for 6 months, and I was pretty beat down at that time. While I was there, I was remanded. It was either that or go to jail for some things that I had been intoxicated and done some really stupid things. And anyway, so they said, you can either go here or you can go to jail. So I chose the rehab. It was like jail with no bars. But anyway, I landed there and I was pretty beat down. And there's a chaplain, James Fudge from St. John. He's retired now. He's a great man. He's spoken into my life so many times, and I honor him in every, I love him so much. He's like a father to me, the father that I never had. And he reached down to me, and he encouraged me, he lifted me up, and he worked with me, and he helped me. He did things for me that I never expected anyone to ever do, but that was the love of God, as I was feeling the love of God from him. He just kept encouraging me and saying, you can do this, you can get clean. And he ended up baptizing me. I got baptized in the church in St. John, and it was one of the greatest things that I ever done. It was one of the greatest decisions I had ever made, was to get baptized. I got out of there, and I come back to Fredericton, and I got mixed up with the wrong crowd. I let myself do it. I made the decision, to go back to my old life, to go back to the places I used to go. I made that decision, and I let myself go back down that road even further, deeper into despair and darkness, and until one day, like we talked about before, how I had enough, and I made my way to a church, and I asked God for forgiveness. I repented of my sins. Again, I asked God for forgiveness. And within a very short time, within a few days, I had received the gift of the Holy Ghost. It was when God came into my life, into my heart, and started doing some major renovations in my life.
So, for people who are listening for the first time, because there's going to be quite a few of them, just a quick summary of what was life like before even rehab.
It was just chaos. Chaos, like complete. Like I never had any peace. I was very unhappy all the time. I had a chip on my shoulder. I hated people. I hated myself. I couldn't look in the mirror. My kids hated me. I couldn't go to a family reunion. I wasn't allowed to go near my parents' house if I had been drinking. Like everybody, my sisters had given up on me. My mother prayed for me. She said she never ever give up on me, but I wasn't to be trusted. Anywhere that I went, I was so unpredictable. I would do anything, and it was my drug use is the reason why I was like that. I would go into these drug-induced psychosis states where I would just, like, for days I wouldn't sleep and I wouldn't eat, and I would just, like, and I would hallucinate really bad, and I would hide under the couch, and I would do really crazy stuff. And I remember it all. Like, I remember doing this stuff. It's not like I blacked out from drinking. Like, I remember days when I was hiding under the couch because I heard something in the closet.
And that's the crazy part. In even in scripture, it says not to consume anything that may alter your state of mind. And people kind of look at that like whatever. But from the stories you've told me, like when we were downtown, and you've told me some of these stories, like, it sounds nuts.
Yeah.
Like can you give like an example, or like just one simple story, like the?
Well, okay, so I'm 40. I'll be 48 years old in October.
Yeah.
I can remember so vividly, like it was yesterday, when I was 12 years old. So if you do the math, that's we're talking 35 years ago.
Yeah.
Okay? And I can remember everything. I was so stoned on magic mushrooms. I was 12 years old. And it was the fall of the year, because that's when we picked mushrooms, was in the fall of the year, because that's when they grow. Right? So my dad would take me picking magic mushrooms, and we would eat mushrooms till we were full in the field. And I don't know how many grams of mushrooms I did that day. But I was walking on the ground, and it was like I was walking on leaves, and the ground was like thousands of feet down under the leaves, and I was so scared I was going to fall through the leaves.
It was like a magic carpet or something.
Yeah,
like that, right?
It was like a sheet of leaves, and you could look down through everywhere, and it looked like the ground was like, it was like I was in an airplane, and the ground was like so far away, and it was really scary. And that same day, I watched a set of horns grow out of my father's head.
Yeah, and see, that's the crazy thing, because.
And I remember it all. Like, I remember, like, it was like the colors and everything, man. It was just so, like, even right now when I think about it in my mind, it's so real, like what I've seen, and I can, like, I was 12 years old.
Yeah. And that's like, because people, like researchers, no one knows anything about them. And it's almost like there is something spiritual about them, because you remember them like a spiritual memory that you'd have, like in the church, for example. Like, from what you're telling me, it's like engraved in your mind.
Right, it was just the dark side. It was this of spirituality, the very dark side. Like I was telling you about the little kids coming out of the woods.
Yeah.
All these little kids coming out of the woods and coming in under the front step of the cabin I lived in. And I was teaching them, and I had a chalkboard. I was drawing pictures, and it was so weird. But it was so real. None of it was real. But in my mind, it was so real and scary. Now when I think about it, man, that was scary, And with this marijuana legalization and stuff that's coming now, like I'll tell you, like I have heard it. When I was 11 years old, it's just a joint. It is never just a joint. I can tell you, it's never just a joint. 35 years later, after that joint, I'm stranded in an airport in Toronto with no money, no phone. They yanked me into customs because of a charge from 1991. It was just a joint. But I can tell you right now that day, after 35 years later, and I'm still suffering from the repercussions of that one joint from 1991. And then, it wasn't just a joint. It's a gateway drug. I know it's a gateway drug because that's where I started, and it wasn't enough. It got to the point where it wasn't getting me high enough. The more I smoked, the more I needed, more, and then I switched to a harder drug, and then I switched to a harder drug again, until I eventually come to cocaine and crystal meth, smoking crystal meth like that. It progresses. It's the same way with alcoholism. It's crazy. People say alcohol's a drug. It's a drug, and it's a progressive thing. You start out with one beer, and then 25 years from now, you need a gallon of hard liquor. to get that same effect.
Because right now, with the legalization of certain drugs and, methadone labs, like, I know you have a very passionate stance on that. But when we're, like the youth, growing up in a society or in a culture where drugs are very praised because, it's popular to do drugs.
Yeah.
In the church, people leave for various reasons and whatnot, but it just seems like things are becoming more difficult for us. As time goes on, things become legal and sin begins to become more, normalized.
Right. It's normal.
Like, what's your take on that? Because it obviously wasn't that way such a long time ago.
Well, it's when I think about this, like the legalization, when they're gonna make it so you can just go to the liquor store and buy pot. I know it's like it's really no different than buying alcohol.
Yeah,
it's just it's something that's new, but like it's just broken. The whole system is just broken because like we don't agree with going to the liquor store and buying liquor, right? And you only got to be 19 years old.
Yeah.
But if we could see what alcohol and drugs does to families.
Yeah.
Like alcohol is like the leading cause. Like even more so than other drugs. It's like, and it's so easy to get. You just go but so many times, and you hear so many stories of guys killing their families and just that in abusive relationships. Kids that are watching this stuff that grow up in it. I know because I grew up in an alcoholic, abusive home. Mm-hmm. Like where my mother's boyfriends beat her, and they, and they beat me, and it was just, and violence was a natural occurrence. It was something that happened all the time. We were scared all the time. Mm-hmm. My sister and I, my little sister, we were scared all the time. And drugs and alcohol is the reason why. And when I think about about the government making it so readily available to teenage, 19, you're still a teenager. Mm-hmm. Your brain isn't even done developing yet. Do the research, right? Your brain isn't even done developing until you're like 23 or 24 years old. And they're going to let you go into the liquor store and buy marijuana and, and mess yourself all up. We're talking about the kids that are going to be running this country another 20 years.
Mm-hmm. And here's the thing, too, is like for your situation, your solution was that some father-like figure reached down to you and brought you up.
Right.
And you've never done anything afterwards. Right?
Right.
But like in today's culture, where marijuana is being legalized and parties are becoming obviously more frequent and whatever, and it's sad to say, but the image of Christ and Christianity is being demolished.
Yes.
So we're throwing out the solution that's probably the greatest solution that we have right now, where maybe being a part of something, being a part of the family of God, would be our only solution, but we're throwing everything away and adding more problems.
Yeah. There's no other way. There is no other way. Money won't do it. Your work won't do it. There's no, I know because I don't know if I mentioned it the last time, but the detox and the rehabs, I have done the 28-day program twice, and I've been remanded for 6 months in a long-term rehab, and I've done the detox program 15 or 20 times. I don't even know how many times. More times than I've got fingers and toes. So many times, and nothing worked. Nothing worked. I wanted to stop. These young people who are just starting to experiment with drugs, they have no idea what mess they're getting into. They have absolutely no idea. But 30 years from now, you will. Trust me. 30 years from now, you will look back on your life and you will realize that you have a problem.
Yeah. That
things aren't changing. And there's only one way out. Money isn't going to give it to you. Possessions isn't going to give it to you. A new girlfriend or a new wife is not going to give it to you. None of that stuff is going to give it. Popularity is not going to give it to you. If anything, that's going to make it worse, because in order to maintain and keep, in order to have popularity, you've got to have drugs and alcohol and be in the party scene and have a whole bunch of different girlfriends. That's how they're popular. And nice cars, right? Money, because they come from good homes. But you know what? I've seen it. Them young men who come from good homes with lots of money and anything and everything they could ever want, they end up out on the street. I've seen it. Because that's where drugs puts you. There's nothing good about it. Nothing.
So that kind of links to what I think we were talking about in the car, is temporary pleasure or temporary satisfaction. And the stories that you share when you go to the prison ministry in St. John is the story of David.
Right.
And it's not just the story of David, it's the story of Allan.
Right.
And the story of Daniel.
Yeah. And
the story of maybe people who are listening to this.
Right. And for all you young men, I can tell you, for the young fellas, 18, 20, 22, 25, tough guys, I'm telling you, we have baptized gang members from Toronto, and these aren't special needs guys. These are not guys who don't know what's going on. These guys are ruthless killers. They have killed people. They're gang members. These are smart. These guys have high IQs, and you know what? We've dunked them in the lovely name of Jesus Christ, and brought them up out of the water. You know what? And how we do it is we befriend them, and we explain to them the love of Jesus Christ, and Jesus shows them love through us. And the light of His love shines through us, and they notice it, they see it, and they want it. And that's why we're going over to the prison, because we believe it's God's will. We know it's God's will. Otherwise, we wouldn't be going there, because whatever His will is, that's where we want to be, and that's how we succeed, is being in God's will. That's it.
That's it.
It's simple, because you won't find it in the world. You will not find it in the world. You know what? It is so easy for me to sit here on the other side of the spectrum, on the other side of the sphere, and say, you know what, man? You will not find it in the world.
It's true.
But if you've never been there, and then curiosity strikes.
Yeah.
Right? Oh, well, it didn't work for him. Maybe he got out of control. I'll tell you, anybody who ever does it, who tries it, is going to end up out of control. Because the first time I ever done cocaine, I fell in love. And that was it. I headed down a dark path, and I went so far away from the light that there was nothing. I was in complete darkness, and it wrecked me. It completely beat me down to the point where even my own kids hated me. They told me they hated me. You know, so
kind of bring it back to like what you guys do at the prison ministry is that, as you said, there's very smart people there. People who maybe graduated as top of their high school class, top of their universities.
Yeah, they're smart.
With the highest potential. And it's just speaking from my own experience, but when I personally, like, this is just a personal conviction, but sometimes I don't reach out to certain people because our flesh always decides to use we use things in regards to potential. We speak to people in regards to potential. I will not go to, my flesh says I will not go to a homeless man. I will not minister to a homeless man. I won't ask a homeless man to go to the lunch with me because he's not in the same class as me.
Right.
You know? I won't ask him to sew my wound because he's not a doctor.
Right.
You know? But the thing that you're doing with the prison ministry, or what people do as missionaries or things like that, or as pastors do with their congregation, is that they never lose sight of that potential within the people that they're ministering to. Like God did to David when David fell with Bathsheba. And it's like, there have been points in my life where I felt so low because I've fallen so many times. But then my pastor lifts me up.
Amen.
You know?
Yeah. That's what we need.
And that was probably what Fudge did in your life. You know, you were David.
Yeah. And he encouraged me, and you know, I believe, you know, and I mean with all of my heart, that every fiber of my being, that you know, being born again, like I was born into the family of God, and there's nothing like it. There's nothing like it. I have met so many genuine good people who really, you know, who lift me up and who want to help me. And in turn, we want to help other people. Like, that's what it's about, you know. It's about, you know, lifting people up and encouraging. Like, the church is growing. We're in revival, and it's awesome. Like, it's just, I love it. I wouldn't trade it for anything. We already did everything else out there. Now there's nothing else. That's it. There's nothing to go back to. You know, like when I think about the goodness of God and what He's done in my life, like, look around you, you know, and I talk to different people, like, oh well, if I had what you had, I'd serve God. I'm like, man, you have no idea. You didn't know me before I served God. I was standing on the corner with a bottle of Listerine. You know, 12 years ago, I was hanging around downtown with a bottle of Listerine, man, drinking it. Like, and you know, and like I got a beautiful wife, and you know, my dreams are coming true daily. All these dreams that I had are a reality. They're reality now. Like stuff, you know, like I'm driving around in a 1950 Ford Coupe. You know, that was just a far off dream I had 20 years ago. It's reality today. I'm driving up to my old hometown where I'm from, and the guys are all looking. Like, shaking their head. And you know what? They won't ask me why or how, because they know.
They
know. Because they know that Jesus is what they're going to hear out of my mouth, is Jesus did it.
Right.
It's got nothing to do with me, not by my might or my power. It was Jesus that did it all. And they know it. And they walk away wagging their head. They don't want to talk to me about it anymore. You know, I thought, I'm going to save every one of them drug addicts. I'm going to, you know, I'm going to lead every one of them drug addicts to the throne. And it eventually,
yeah.
It takes some time.
Yeah.
But yeah, you know, it's my dreams have turned into a reality. Like, I mean, I married a beautiful, faithful woman. She's so good to me, you know, and my business thrives, you know, and I have a beautiful home that's almost completely paid for.
You have a pool room.
In a pool room. Like, my wife she works for the government. My wife, she loves her job. My wife makes good money. We're financially stable, you know. Our kids, you know, like I got Riley. He runs the aisles at the church, you know. And Riley watches me. And Riley's doing what he's doing. And the wife said, when she looks at him, she sees me through and through. Riley's been watching me for the last few years, and Riley's doing what I'm doing. He's imitating me. You know what? And I love it. Because it will keep him off the streets. It will keep him away from them bad influences. He'll be encouraged. He got people like you, Daniel, speaking into his life. And I appreciate that so much. People like you and Matt speaking into his life. You know, he needs that because he gets beat down. You know, like the kids, you've been through the high school thing, you know. You know, you've been there, and what them kids go through. Like, I mean, I can only imagine, you know, what the stuff them kids go through. It wasn't like that when I went to school.
Yeah.
You know, things were a lot different when I went to school, when the dinosaurs roamed the earth.
Yeah.
It's a long time ago. But.
And it's so, like, and you did mention that, is that, let's say you're in high school, or even the other people that you're looking to reach, is they're all looking for something.
Yeah.
And you were looking for something.
Amen. Yeah.
And it's unfortunate because, as I've mentioned today, as I've mentioned earlier, is that the society is throwing the idea of Christianity out the window, and leaving people as like ants to roam the earth.
Right.
But we don't. But like, what are they supposed to do? No wonder men are committing suicide, or other people committing suicide.
Right. And I might add to that a lot of if you look at statistics, a lot of these people who are committing suicide are very well off. They have all the material things that they could possibly ever want in the world.
Mm.
But there's a void in their heart that cannot be filled by material things. We know that.
Yeah.
There's a void in each and every man's heart that cannot be filled by anything other than Jesus Christ.
It's true.
God.
That's true.
So we will, and you will, wander aimlessly without Jesus. We will wander aimlessly like worker ants, like you just said. We will work and toil, turn the soil, and just and then we'll die.
And here's the thing, like maybe I personally don't know, but when one person is on drugs or when one person looks for momentary pleasure, it's almost like this is my theory, but it's like they're looking for a way to escape reality.
Right.
Or responsibility, most importantly.
Yeah.
It's responsibility. And what's kind of interesting about that is that when people begin to pursue responsibility, they start to aim towards what's better. But what's ultimately better is following Jesus. I think that's the most high goal you can go to. He's the most high. But even when people try their best to, let's say, climb the corporate ladder or be a good father or anything like that, maybe it's fulfilling and maybe they die happy, but there's still a void, I feel.
Definitely.
There's still a void.
Definitely. That's why there's so much, that's truth. That's just truth. Because so many times I have started, like you said, the corporate ladder, so to speak.
Yeah.
When I was nursed back to health, started eating again, got an apartment again, quit drinking for a few weeks again, started feeling better again, got a job again, got a few bucks saved in the bank again, went right back to, turned right around and just ate my puke.
Because it's like
just like a dog returning to his vomit.
Because it's like, God has blessed me. Okay, it's time to head back.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, and I did that for so long, for so many years. But I didn't know. I didn't know any better. It was all I knew. That's why I thank God for the man who introduced me to Jesus Christ. Thank God for that man. And you know what? The burden that got laid on my heart when that happened. That's why we go to the prison. That's why we baptized 12 inmates in the name of Jesus. Just since last November, 12.
Right.
We've been going 7 years. 7, the special number 7.
Yeah.
We've been going 7 years before we had a baptism. And in the last 6 months, we've had 12 after we've been going for 7 years. And the enemy would say, oh, what are you doing? You're wasting your time. You shouldn't be doing that. You shouldn't be doing that. Well, you know what? In your face, devil. Because we've had 12 baptisms in the last 6 months. And we're going for 12 more this year. And then we're going to double it again next year.
And can you imagine the feeling? Especially since those prisoners believe it. It's that everything that they've done, gone.
Oh, isn't that just one of the glories of being a Christian? Is realizing that you messed up and it's gone. And you know what? I messed up. And I stopped and I looked at the situation and I realized where I was, the situation I was in, and what I did to set myself up for failure. And then the knife went through the heart. And I said, oh, that's the Holy Ghost. I'm never doing that again. I'm never doing that again. Jesus, forgive me for what I did. And then it's under the blood. I'm dead to that. It's not, and we can't get this wrong when we think, oh, well, all I have to do is say, oh, God, forgive me. You have to do it with a tender heart, and you have to do it meaning it, right? You have to mean it. You can't just say, oh, well, you know what, I'll go sin again tomorrow and I'll ask God for forgiveness. We know that. We want everybody to know that. That's not what being a Christian is. Being a Christian is realizing how you messed up, where you were, what you were thinking when you do it, and not do it again. And it's scripture. Jesus, I am sorry. Please forgive me for every sin that I committed. And it's under the blood.
It's under the blood.
The only thing left is right here in your mind. And that's the enemy of your soul. And he wants to take you out. And he will use that to try to take you out through condemnation. Worldly sorrow, which leads to death.
Yeah.
And that's it.
And you mentioned this before. Like in regards to being a Christian, it's about belief. But there's always this conversation of what does a believe mean? Does it mean that I acknowledge that it exists? Or is the true belief how I act?
Amen.
Do I act as if it's real?
Right.
You know, because
that's applying it to your life.
Yeah.
Like, because like we were talking about a while ago. Like I know so many guys who say, "Oh yeah, I believe in God. I believe." Most people will tell you they believe in God.
Yeah.
You know. But if you don't apply, like if you don't, you can't just say, I believe in God and everything be good. That's not, you're left to your own devices. You're going to burn.
And then what do you mean by God? Is it God as in, because you can only have one God.
Right.
So what's your God? Like you say you believe in Jesus as God, but you don't act that way. You act as if marijuana is your God. Or your job's your God.
Right. But see, these people don't know that.
Mm-hmm.
They don't understand that. It says it in the Bible that you can't serve two gods. You can't serve you can only serve one. Mm-hmm. So you can either be blessed or you can be cursed. There is no in between. Mm-hmm. There's no in between. If you want to serve the enemy, which is everything but God.
Yeah.
Everything but God is the enemy. Money, drugs, women, work, hunting, guns, cars, it don't matter what it is. If it's not God, it's the enemy. And you will either be blessed or cursed, one or the other. And I don't care. There's a lot of people out there that live a good life, that help people, that do good things. But you know what? If they don't know Jesus Christ, and it is in the good book. It is in that book. And we believe it. I believe it. You believe it. And we live it.
Yeah.
Right? And I have talked to different people saying, you know what? I wish I had what you had. And I'm thinking, you know what? You can have what I have for free. Mm-hmm. It's free. It's the greatest gift of all. And it's free. But you can't just say I want it.
Yeah.
You can't just say, oh, I want what he's got. I want what he's got. Reach out and take it. Claim it. Reach out and claim it, brother. Right? Yep. It's that simple. I had a guy tell me, and I worked with him, Daniel, I worked with him, and I worked with him, and I worked with him. I said, if you want what I got, then follow me around. Mm-hmm. Follow me around. Come with me. Come and see. Taste and see. Come with me. Mm-hmm. If you want this. I want to live a life. I want to live a life where I can walk when I'm in the dark right here on the floor underneath this pool table. I'm the same man when I'm out there at the church. Mm-hmm. I want to be the same man when I'm out there. I want these guys to follow me. Mm-hmm. I want them. You want what I got? It's follow me then. If you don't believe me, follow me. When I say do it, do it. I'm not trying to be God. I'm only trying to help these guys. And they're like, they don't want authority in their lives. Everybody is going to bow. Mm. I'm going to bow down. You're going to bow down. We're all going to bow. Mm-hmm. Every knee shall bow, and every tongue will confess. We're just not all going to the same place. Mm-hmm. Yes. But we will all stand before God, each and every one of us.
Mm-hmm. So I have a question in regards to that, because you brought up some people they won't follow. And so if there was advice that you could give to maybe some young ministers or maybe some young people who are having issues with, let's say, trying to reach out to a friend, because there are certain people who don't want help.
That's right.
And then, for example, maybe there's points in my life where I've been trying to reach out for someone to reach out and continue working, and you've felt this way probably. And it becomes baggage because this person's almost manipulating or falsifying or whatever, if that's a word, or like it almost seems like I did kind of put this on Instagram, but I was talking about just a thought that came to mind and kind of this advice that my mom gave me. But you shouldn't be carrying two crosses.
Right. You can't carry somebody else's.
You can't carry somebody else's.
Right.
So, like, do you have any examples of that? Like, if you're if you're in prison ministry, or if there was someone you were working with, like, obviously we won't share names, but
it's a very thin line because, now I've working with drug addicts. They're pretty easy to read for the most part. They're not all of them, but you need help.
Oh, jeez, man.
Daniel, you can't. We can't bear this load alone. Like, I've got a couple guys that are helping me with some guys. I'm like, man, and I can confide in these guys. They're genuine, and I can say, man, I'm having a hard time with this guy. I need a hand. Can you help me? Yeah. And they're helping me. We can't do this alone. And I've talked to my pastor before. How do I know when I've done all I can do? And he said, you never will. My pastor told me, he said, you never will. But there's a thin line there, Daniel, because without our salvation, we are useless. We are rendered useless. We are not going to lead anybody to the cross without salvation.
That's good.
Hey? So if you're at a point in your life, it says not to grow weary in well-doing. But if you're at a point in your life where you need a break, you need a break. I've taken them before from people. Man, I've had to. That's good. And I am blessed to be part of a church, a growing church where there's men of God who will step up to the plate, and I'll say, man, I need a hand with this guy, and they will step up and help me. And what it does is it maintains that flow to this person, right? But I'm able to step back and take a deep breath and then go in swinging again, right?
That's good advice. Yeah. That's good advice. So, that's very good advice, because you'll have people who will burn out. Yeah, and that's the last thing you want. Without our salvation, because we're losing when we get to the point where we're getting frustrated. Yep. And the flesh is trying to creep in, then we're losing our salvation. I don't care what anybody says. It's not something that we just wake up one morning and it's gone. That's not how it happens. We know that. Backsliders don't just wake up one morning and decide to backslide. They were backslidden in their heart long before that. Yeah. It's not. We're either going forward or we're stopped or we're going backwards. One of the three. Yep. There's nothing else. You're either going forward, right, and you're going back, or you're stopped, or you're going backwards. One of the three. It's that simple. So we can't coast. There's no such thing as coasting because we're backsliding. Because if you're coasting, you're in trouble. You're in trouble when you're coasting. But having like a strike force. That's what we need. We need a strike force. We need a few good men. Hey? Yep. A few good men that are all on the same page and that are all willing and ready and capable to fight. Yeah. And that's how we can keep shoving these guys forward, keep shoving them forward. Drug addicts are hard people to work with, man. Yeah. Like I wasn't called to try to a politician. I'm a redneck, right? And my past life was a rough life. Like, I was brought up rough, we fought and we did stupid things. I was called to them people because I can walk into a crowd of them and talk to them. Yeah. You need to pick your battles wisely. Yeah. That's a part of it.
For the most part, I just walk into them. I can walk into I could walk into a bar, and I don't, just for the record, I don't go to bars, but I could. I could walk into a bar, and it's not something I would recommend anybody doing that's trying to, searching for salvation. It's not, it's no different than walking into a prison. There's 20 guys there, and I can walk in there, and I have no fear. I can stand up, and I'm like, hey guys, I've been where you're at, and I love you guys, and they respect me, Daniel, for that, and they want to be my friend. We hug, and prison inmates, they don't usually hug, but they love me, and they like the chaplain. I've grown to the chaplain and I have a really good relationship, and things are going well in the prison. We're having revival in the prison. When you think 12 baptisms in 6 months, that's revival, man. They don't have baptisms there. Not since we were going. Before we were going there was no baptisms. For years. It just started happening.
That's the work of God.
Amen. That's the truth. And I get excited when I think about it, what God's doing in that prison. Like when I see young men that I'm old enough to be their father, and they're doing life. And they were tough guys, and there's tears running down their face. They're not so tough now. They're not so tough now. They're in a federal penitentiary serving life. The tough guy's gone.
Tough guy's gone.
The tough guy's gone.
Right on. I think we're gonna probably close it here. That was pretty good. I think that was about half an hour to 50 minutes. That's pretty good. You shared lots of nuggets of truth. I think very good advice. Probably some of the best advice I think anyone, let's say in schools or high schools or anything, trying to reach their friends. Pick your battles wisely.
Right.
Take a break if you need to.
And have a strike force.
Have someone who can speak to you.
Right.
Perfect.
Yeah. And Daniel, you know, like having people that you can be accountable to is a big thing. You know that.
Yep.
I mean, a lot of these young people don't know that, but you need someone in your life. If you don't want to be a Christian, find a Christian to be accountable to and be accountable to him. And you know what? He's going to convert you. Because you will be. If you're searching and you need someone to be accountable to, then you need God in your life.
Hey, that's true.
We all need God in our lives. Every one of us. God is
the highest
the
of
Amen.
The highest of highs.
Amen.
That's
Amen.
such a good point.
That's truth. You know, being accountable is, and I don't care, you know, like our pastors are accountable to people.
Yeah.
Everybody needs to be accountable to somebody.
Yep.
Everybody. And let's make it a man of God.
Yeah. Hey, amen. I'm all for it. If there was one last thing you want to leave to them, one last thing you want to say, you can take the next few minutes to say it. If whenever you go into the prison ministry, something you want to share about that, or you can share anything.
Well, I guess I could say that to young people who have never done drugs yet, but who are thinking about doing drugs, but haven't done them yet, to talk to somebody. You need to talk to somebody. Don't do it. Because if you do, that door will slam shut. Because once you've done it, you can't miss what you don't have. Once you've done it, then you have a battle on your hands. You have a battle on your hands because you have to beat that demon. You have to beat that demon. And walking into the, and people can say, oh, well, that would never happen to me. That would never happen to me. But when that door slams shut and that key gets turned clink, clink.
You're just like everyone else.
You're just like everyone else. People can say, oh, it couldn't happen to me. It couldn't happen to me. Well, but by the grace of God, it didn't happen to me because I have so many friends that died of drug overdoses. I have so many friends who are unemployed, living with their parents, are 50 years old. You know why? Drugs. That's the root of the problem. We live in a broken system. This society, and it is just broke.
Right on. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Brother.
Perfect.